Recording. Okay, hey everyone. Brendan Payne, and I'm here with Lori Widner, who is going to show us today or tell us today about kind of her path around lead generation as it relates to buyers. Of course, you're getting information on how to work with buyers and how to work with sellers. And a lot of people make the assumption you've got to go out and find seller leads every day if you're going to work with them. But Lori is actually grown really quick and built her business very quickly because she has adopted the process of lead generation, and through that is really focused on primarily buyer business right now, but it obviously does some listings and stuff like that. So without some further ado, I'm going to introduce Lori and bring us up to speed for everybody that might be listening to this. Lori, give us an idea of kind of when you started and what you started doing in terms of were you working with buyers and sellers, and kind of what your production is now.
Sure. Thanks, Brendan. Yeah, so this is my third year in the business. My first year when I initially started, I was prospecting for sellers and then kind of fell into the buying side of things. My first year I did 40 transactions, and then last year ended with 68 transactions, and primarily all buy side.
Pretty much all buy side last year?
Last year, the exact numbers, I did have some sellers even from the first year, with referrals and center of influences as well. So.
Okay, awesome. So obviously in a short period of time, really strong production and grew very quickly. Even in your first year, you had a significant amount of success that first year. So that doesn't happen just by default. Nobody rolls into the business and just shows up and does 40 transactions. So you have some sort of generating routine. Can you tell us what is that? Like, what is your generating routine that you do on a daily or weekly basis?
Sure. So primarily my prospecting comes in within our traditional, our prospecting hours of 8 to 11. But if I'm not doing it from 8 to 11, then I'm making room throughout the day at a different time. So usually it's typically 8 through 11. I have 2 nights, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, that I prospect from like 4:30 to 6:30, or sometimes when I first started, it was much later. I would go till 8 o'clock at night, prospecting, and evenings too, and then at least one weekend day just to connect to those people that are working professionals that are not answering the phone during the day. A Sunday afternoon or Saturday morning, I would typically prospect those hours as well.
Got it. So a couple of things I think are really important about what you just described there is, one, it's a schedule. It's for those of you who may not know you, I know you, I see you, I know the commitment level is it's almost not even, it's not something that's up for discussion. You're going to be in there doing the generating on a daily basis. But the other part that I think is really important is you, in the beginning, you were also adding in nights and a weekend. Why was that? What do you think was the reasoning behind that?
Well, it's because in the beginning, you're not going to be as busy as you are, as you grow your business. So it's all about contacts and, increasing your contacts. So it was working. Sometimes I would be here from 8 in the morning until 5 at night, or then, in the evening, then making calls too, because I didn't have leads right at that time I could work with. So it was building that up and just getting a pipeline and practicing my communication, practicing the conversations. So maybe they weren't perfect, but it was having them, and then you have enough of them and you get better as you go along. So it was, nights, weekends, and not just 4 hours when I initially started, because you have more time. And I knew that I either had to be successful at this or I was going to have to find another job. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's a critical point that I think that people have to understand. So regardless of the time, the days, the months, the years that you have been in the business, regardless of that, if you don't have a pipeline of business, there is no bigger priority than generating to build the pipeline. Like there's not another activity you can do if you don't have several hot leads, or you don't have a significant amount like of active listings or pendings that you're on track for what you want to do. There isn't a more important activity than generating your next deal. But
Exactly.
there's going to be a lot of things that we sometimes fall in a trap and say, well, let me go handle this, and it's servicing of the one client that you have, or let me go work on this that is really just passive stuff. It's not going out there and trying to find somebody to work with. So that, I think that's a really, really important point. So hopefully the people listen will kind of take that to heart. So you've got your schedule in place. Obviously this isn't like you just kind of decide, all right, I'm going to do this, and then it's just all super easy. So tell me about some of the challenges in actually starting this and staying consistent with it.
So, I mean, some of the challenges is like our mind does things with us. We sometimes make up stories to ourselves of, that you're not good at it or other things. So I just say it's like sticking with it. Some of it was fear of being in a group of people, like being on the phones. How am I going to sound? I'm not as proficient as somebody that's been in the business 12 years next to me having these great conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Here I'm like kind of stumbling over my words, even though I've practiced my script. Sometimes it doesn't go as well as we planned. So it was just every day of just knowing, okay, today's a new day. I'm here to do it, and picking up and dialing. There was times that I was like, well, maybe I'll just wait until everybody, leaves after 11, and then I'll make my calls because I won't sound, they're not going to hear me then, and they won't hear me not, sounding great. So that was kind of a fear. And I do see sometimes newer agents tending to do that. I can observe that around the room, that they're doing it, but they're doing it later because, and maybe it is because of that same fear associated that I had when starting.
Yeah, that's really very normal. I think I can remember times where I wished I could just like observe instead of having to be the one that maybe is observed. And that's a tough position to be in, because you're actually every rep that you're going to do in this business to get to a certain skill level for you. Everybody's a little bit different in their comfort with the conversations and how they communicate and stuff. But however long it's going to take you to get proficient at these conversations, every conversation that you let slip by because you're letting yourself be distracted, or you don't make that call, or you feel like, oh man, it's quiet in here, I better wait for a minute. Every one of them delays you getting to where you can be the best version of yourself in terms of generating. So
Exactly.
and the funny thing is so you're such a short time period of going from brand new agent, 0 deals, learning the business to where you are now. I can see from an observation standpoint, when you came in, you were kind of, you were just figuring it out. And now you're the person that somebody may go and ask a question, or you'll be able to add value to a conversation. And so much of that, like, I know I learned everything from the people that were around me when I started. So it's
so true.
There's none of us that are really coming up with something so unbelievably unique. It's all a product of what we've heard around, and then we just kind of put our own style on it, right?
Exactly. It is. There's such a wealth of knowledge around us, and skill set, and people that can help. And it's just to ask questions and not be afraid to ask the questions too. And that's only going to make you better.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you have kind of progressed, how did you on the buying side, it would have been probably easier to say, well, you know what, because buyers tend to raise their hand, right? Buyers tend to raise their hand and say, I'm interested in buying, versus sellers who, they're once in a while they raise their hand, they're for sale by owner, or they go through a lead service online and stuff. But most of the time, buyers are inadvertently raising their hand by their searches online. You started as working on listings, making the calls. How did you transition that over into buyers, or why do you think that when you said, okay, I'm going to start working buyers, that you kept that philosophy that you had to keep the generating going?
Good question. I don't know why. I guess it was probably a comfort thing. I don't know if it was a comfort thing or not. I think, I remember, vividly the first, connection that I made with somebody where I was going to, possibly turn it into a sale. It was a Real Geek lead that didn't have a valid phone number, but I could see them, on the website searching, and I was like determined that I was going to connect with this person, and I did. It was like, perhaps we have the wrong phone number, sending them another email and getting it, and they responded, and I connected with them and was able to find what they wanted, and proceeded forward with that sales process. And then I guess I did the next one after that. It kind of just maybe fell through. I don't know.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have talked about before is the importance of having that pipeline. And as you continue to evolve, like there's a couple things that happen, whether it's buyer lead generation or listing lead generation, is the bigger your pipeline is, then the more deals you're going to have just kind of show up. So what have been some of as you've made the investment in the time, of course you want the deal right now, but what have you seen any byproducts of like the time that you spend, the Wednesday and Thursday that you're in the office, the Saturday when you're brand new? What has been the result of that now that you've been in the business for a while?
So it was about building the database and building the pipeline. So there was, deals that I'm doing now from 2 years ago that I put in the database that, dripped on them, continued to follow up with them, that are now, transpiring into something. It wasn't, an instant thing, but it was those connections, putting them in the database, building that up, dripping on them, continuing following up. So I feel that, that's so important. The time that you're investing in the beginning in doing that is leading, may not be instant results then. So that's why I say trust the process, believe it, build your database. Those may be your deals, 2, 5, even 10 years down the line, but they're all in the pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's two really important things that come out of that. One is there's a lag time in this business. So we get paid in the future as real estate agents. We get paid in the future for what we do today. Very rarely are you going to pick up the phone today and call someone and, well, I'll go out on a limb and say never are you going to call someone today and they go and you do a deal today and get paid today. At best, they call, you go write a deal, and a few weeks later you get paid because it has to have a closing period. So there's a lag. Sometimes it's 30 days, sometimes it's years like you just described. So if you don't keep up with the generating, then the lag is going to show up some point in the future that we don't really know. And if you have a few periods of time where you're not consistent, then you might have a longer lag time of no business coming in. And, the other thing is, especially on the buyer side, as agents, we come into the buyer's buying process at different stages. And you just described, sometimes you talk to somebody today and they're not going to do anything for a couple of years. But if you don't keep that going, the person that you talk to today is going to do a deal without you in a couple of years. If you do keep your systems in place and keep filling that pipeline, then you're going to consistently have deals coming to you from work that you did sometime in the past, which I think is, that's how you're growing. You're going to go do the deals you do this year based off what you do, but then you're going to have a bunch of stuff from 2 years ago that's going to show up, and that's how you're going to be able to grow.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what advice would you have for a new agent that comes in, either a new licensee or a new agent to the company, in terms of generating on the buyer side?
I would say to set a schedule, stick to your schedule, have your prospecting hours, and then once you get leads, prioritizing the leads. When you're new, sometimes in And sometimes I have to remind myself of this now. You're so excited, you have this lead, and you then think during prospecting, you got to stop what you're doing to instantly answer what just came up. Where if you're prioritizing your lead, no, you can continue to make calls for 2 hours and then, follow up on that. I mean, sometimes it is, you need an instant, we are kind of in a speed to lead process. So I'm not saying, don't act on it right away, but it's prioritizing it. Is it somebody that's ready to go now? But we're so excited we have something, then we're investing all of our time and energy into this one thing. Well, we don't know. They could be talking to 5 other agents, but we're still just like divulging ourselves in it. And we're not continuing to then prospect and to continuing to generate because we have this one, what we feel is a hot lead at that time. So it's, prioritizing and then still remembering, okay, I need to keep going and keep calling and keep making contacts, because if I don't, then I'm going to have this one deal, it's going to close, and then I'm going to be back to the same thing again.
Yeah, and what you're describing, I mean, those are probably 2 or 3 of the top things that a new person can take on. Have a schedule, have a clear follow-up system, and then just execute it, because your schedule is going to create the generating time, which is going to create the leads. The follow-up system is what's going to allow you to say, okay, these are my priorities, because we are in a reactive business. And if you just follow the newest one that comes in, then you're guessing, and you guess wrong a lot of times. So just follow the system, follow the process for your follow-up, and then the deals will show up. So awesome, great information. I know that the audience is gonna love this, and thanks for getting on. And of course, I know that you're more than willing to help any of the new folks that come in here. So if you've got questions once you get going, then Lori's always there to help out. So thanks again, Lori.
Definitely. Thank you, Brendan. Happy to help.
Thanks.